I don't think he'd be getting that pressure, huh?
Good morning. So for the sake of this particular Zoom remote meeting, you can click on the upper right-hand side of your screen for the speaker view so that you know who is actually speaking during the presentation. So we're going to give a few minutes to let people join us. we're just going to give it a couple of more minutes, and we will probably start exactly at 10:05, just giving everyone 5 minutes to log in. Okay, so we gave it an additional 5 minutes to allow people to log in. I just wanted to do some housekeeping. First of all, welcome everyone to your very first resident remote RAD meeting. And I am your facilitator today. My name is Danny Gonzalez Vasquez, and I'm the Director of Community Planning and Initiatives here at the Housing Authority. Some of you may have seen me on site. I have done all of pretty much the RAD meetings thus far, and it is my responsibility to update you as to where we are in the process today. So I'm very excited to see so many people logging in. I wanted to also let you know that if in fact you had any questions that you wanted answered before the meeting, we provided you with a form so that you can request that information either online or through your asset manager. However, if in fact we have a manageable group today, I have with me Otis Clemens from the Newark Housing Authority IT department, and he will probably track your questions in the chat and let me know if there's questions that you may have that I can answer at the end of this particular presentation. If there is a large number of questions, then what I will do is print out the chat and answer those questions and mail back all of the responses to all the residents. So for the sake of the meeting, we have muted everyone's, so when you log in, you probably will not be able to speak. However, at the bottom of your screen, there is a chat option in which you can then ask a question or type a concern, and Otis will make note of that for me, and we will make sure that we try to address all your questions and concerns before the end of the meeting, or we will mail you a response. So let's get started. So, welcome to your fourth tenant meeting. HUD has revised these regulations a few times, and in their last revision, they indicated that before the Housing Authority could submit their financial pro forma, we wanted to make sure that we touch bases with our residents and let them know what is the process and how far we've gotten in that particular process. So this particular meeting will be recorded. So that meeting will be then uploaded onto our website for reference for other residents who may have had difficulty logging in or not had access remotely. So if you have joined us, I would presume that you belong to the first phase of RAD, and those sites are Stephen Crane Village, Winona Littman Gardens, Riverside Villa, and James C. White. So I want to welcome everyone to the meeting. That is over 1,000 units, hence the reason why we are muting all of you when you join the meeting. And we also wanted to do this remotely in an effort to keep you and the staff safe. So if you are participating in this meeting and you wanted to just listen in and hear what NHA is doing about RAD, we welcome you as well. However, the information that I'm about to share specifically pertains to the 4 sites that are in phase 1 of our RAD conversion. So this may not pertain to you or your development if in fact you do not reside in one of these 4 properties. So the residents at these sites were given the opportunity to submit their questions in advance. Answers to those questions would have been included in the presentation. If you have any other questions or concerns and you would like to ask them after the meeting, you may also do so by submitting your question to your asset manager, or you can use the form on our website, which is found at www.norcha.org under About Us, and then you will see RAD. And then when you click on RAD, you'll see 4th tenant meeting, and you will be able to submit your question there. Questions received by June 29th will be addressed by the RAD team in writing, and then we will mail the responses to all your questions back to you, and we will share all those responses so that everyone who may have had a question similar will actually be able to obtain that information. If you're interested in participating in the Spanish version of this meeting, please check our Spanish flyer for the meeting ID and then call in at 11 a.m. to hear the entire presentation in Spanish. So as I stated, we have had a number of RAD notices. You're welcome to look at these online. So originally it was issued in 2012, and so it's been around for a while. We wanted to let you know that this is, even though we're talking about it now, it's not a new program. It's been around for some time, and we do have some success stories out there in HUD. And so recently it was revised again in 2019. And so during that 2019 revision, an additional resident meeting was added. And so hence here we are. So for those of you who never made it to one of the meetings before, or just to provide you a refresher, let's say, what is RAD? So RAD converts the current public housing annual contributions contract, which is normally called ACC, into a project-based voucher or a project-based rental assistance contract. For the sake of the Housing Authority, as you know, we are interested in converting into a project-based voucher. So RAD enables the Housing Authority to leverage private capital to make capital repairs. So we're basically looking at acquiring additional funding in order to make those repairs that you, in fact, have been so gracious to inform us that you would like to see within your apartments and on the property. So we also offer, through the RAD program, a greater choice of mobility. So what are the goals of RAD? So we're just doing a recap. So we provide a stable and predictable funding source. So we want to make sure that we understand what amount of money we're going to get on an annual basis, as opposed to being at the mercy of, you know, the federal budget and, you know, their percentages. And so we also want to leverage private capital dollars to preserve assets. So we want to be able to renovate some of our public housing units. And then we also want to offer residents a greater choice of mobility. So when I say a greater choice of mobility, residents usually ask me, well, what do you mean by mobility? And what that means is that if in fact you've been leased over a year at your property in a RAD property and you're interested in obtaining a Section 8 voucher, you can get placed on a waiting list for a resident-based Section 8 voucher. And that's pretty much, instead of a project-based Section 8 voucher, it will be resident-based, which would allow you to then move into the fair market or private sector, as we call it. So what are the steps in a RAD conversion? So there's numerous steps. It's a very long process. I know that you guys have been extremely patient with the Housing Authority and me as we come out and talk to you about our RAD conversion. It usually takes about 12 to 24 months to get a closing. And I know that we're over the 24-month mark, but I hate to use a cliche, but we are living in unprecedented times. So, you know, please bear with us as we continue to move forward. There are multiple steps in engaging with the residents, securing finance, and demonstrating to HUD that the property will be improved and remain in good physical condition after the conversion. So you may have seen a couple of things happening on the property, such as you may have seen our engineers. Our surveyor was out there also measuring the grounds and looking at the layouts. So, you know, you are seeing some activity on the property as we're trying to move forward. So where are we in this entire process? So NHA, these are pretty much the steps, and I have checked off where we are today. So we've prepared our application. HUD has issued us a CHAP. We amended the annual plan to reflect our intentions on doing RAD. And the PHA has completed and submitted a financial plan to HUD. And so now we are in the process of completing our requirement for our 4th resident meeting, so that once that is submitted, HUD will issue us a RAD conversion commitment. Once you have your RCC, then we're looking forward to working with our lender in order to close and therefore hopefully commence construction and renovations sometime next year. So, of course, there's always the clause that the Housing Authority may withdraw from the program at any time up until closing, but I do not see that in our future. So what are we currently working on? So just to give you sort of a progress report as to what we've done thus far, we're still working with our lender. In case I haven't mentioned it to you, our lender is Prudential. And we're trying to complete all of the financial and legal requirements necessary to present to HUD our final financial pro forma for the RAD phase 1. And we want to acquire HUD's approval. In actuality, that appointment and for that meeting and submission is tomorrow. So we're sort of taking baby steps, but we are still moving forward. We're in the process of updating our capital needs assessments. Like I said, you may have seen our engineers on the property. Our physical needs assessments and capital needs assessments are pretty much, you know, they're pretty much the same thing. It's just an engineer coming out and taking a look, walking the properties, inspecting the grounds. And due to our current circumstances with the pandemic, we have worked out some additional precautionary measures. And so they started off with walking the common areas, the vacant units, and looking at the grounds. And then maybe by July, we would have some procedures in place to be able to actually inspect some of the occupied units. And in doing so, we have set up some precautionary measures to ensure the safety of staff, as well as the residents and the contractor. So we have a company on the property taking measurements, creating a current survey of all 4 RAD properties. So there are 2 different teams. Some are inside the building, some are outside. So you'll see some different companies coming onto the property. And so we're updating our procedures and working with our development partners to adhere to the CDC guidance and guidance from state and local health officials as it relates to COVID-19. When I say this, I mean that, you know, your safety, of course, is priority. It's a concern not only for the NHA RAD team, but our executive director and our board of commissioners. We want to ensure your safety, your health and well-being, as well as NHA staff. And so we're working to ensure that we adhere to all the CDC guidelines and obtain guidance from our local and state health officials. So that may very well mean that when we do in apartment inspections, we would require that They will be in PPE, which is, you know, their protective gear, and they will have to sanitize that gear and themselves prior to entering another residence. So we will continue to practice social distancing, and hence the reason why we're having this remote meeting. So again, we want to assure you that NHA's RAD team is concerned about your health and safety and will take every feasible precautionary measure to ensure the safety of all of our residents, especially our most vulnerable populations, as we move forward with RAD. So the good news is that we are still moving forward with RAD. We are looking promising to be able to close by the end of this year, sometime in October, and therefore hopefully begin our conversion early next year. So at which time you will start to see, you know, some activity on the property and some needed improvements to your units. Okay. At this time, I would have, okay, so we would have taken some of your questions, in fact. We've discussed in previous meetings, due to the existing conditions and rehabilitation needs at your properties, it appears that the only viable option for rehabilitation is through RAD and through our private and public partnership conversion. We're hoping to close, like I said, on our deal at the end of the year in an effort to begin your upgrades in the property in 2021. So Otis, are you with me? Let's see.
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, so has anyone, I see that we have 26 participants in the meeting, which, you know, I'm very grateful for you guys joining me today. Are there any questions in the chat that I could address?
No questions so far. If you guys are trying to find where the chat is, if you move your mouse to the bottom of the screen, you'll see all the icons pop up at the bottom, and then the chat is the one that's right in the middle. So what you can do is you can click that, and you can type your messages in there, and Danny and I will get those. If you're on a cell phone, then I believe you have to swipe your screen to the right, and it'll give you more options, and then you'll get the option for the chat. But no messages so far, Danny.
Okay. As I stated, the meeting, if you're just joining us, don't worry if you joined us late. This meeting has been recorded and will be shared on our website. Otis will create a link for this particular meeting that you can click on and view and listen to at your leisure, and share it with anyone who was not able to join us remotely. I am looking forward to hopefully being able to answer some of your questions in person at sometime soon. And if no one has any questions that they would like to share live at this time, then, and you think of something that you would like to ask, please feel free to take that question to your asset manager. They will submit it to me and I will respond to you in writing. Again, I want to thank all of you for joining us today, and I appreciate your time. Please remain safe. And if there's no other questions, Otis, we're good?
Yeah, it looks that way.
Okay. God bless everyone. Take care.